A stormy night led to a beating from her dad, but it also set the stage for a $2.3 billion empire. Stacy was just 10, wearing a light dress, her bare knees on the damp wood, when she spotted the white boy collapsed in the mud at the edge of her porch. The rain was coming down hard. Her dad was asleep just a few feet away inside. Still, she pulled the boy onto the porch. She covered his shivering body with her sole blanket and lit the old oil lantern so he wouldn't be completely lost in the dark. "Don't die," she whispered. "Please, just don't die." No one told her to do it, and no one saw her. She just acted. By sunrise, the boy was gone, but he'd left something behind. Scratched into the porch railing were 4 small words in shaky letters. "I will come back." 20 years passed. Gary became a tech billionaire, developing smart cities from rundown areas. For the past 3 years, he'd been buying up every old building in his childhood neighborhood, trying to bury his past under fancy towers. One night, his assistant gave him a folder, the last property he needed, the final piece of land standing between him and everything he'd worked for. He looked at the photo. A worn wooden porch, a lantern still in the window. He froze. Gary Chen didn't call his lawyers or his board. He gave his driver one address, the one he'd tried to forget for 2 decades, and sat in the back of the car in total silence. Suddenly, his expensive suit felt out of place. That morning, Gary had woken up at 5:47 a.m. in a penthouse high above the city. It had smart glass walls, climate control, and a mattress that cost more than some people earn in a year. He lay there staring at the ceiling, like always, not resting, just waiting for the morning to start. The city sparkled below, like something worth wanting, but he felt nothing. Not since that night when a little girl on a porch had looked at him like he was worth saving. He realized that he'd been searching for that porch every day since. Did this story grab you? It's just getting started. Subscribe and tap the notification bell so you won't miss when Gary meets the woman he's been trying to forget and the truth she's been living with. Gary Chen hadn't slept past 4 a.m. for 11 years. It all started with his first big purchase. It began the first time he watched a building he owned get torn down and felt a strange sense of satisfaction instead of sadness. His therapist called it being too alert. His bosses saw it as a good thing. Gary just thought of it as another Tuesday. He was already showered, dressed, and standing at the huge windows when the city started to glow orange at dawn. 42 floors below, Chicago was still waking up. He watched it like he watched everything else, trying to figure out its worth and how long it would take to own it. His phone had 14 messages before 6 a.m. He ignored them all. Instead, he poured some coffee he wouldn't finish and opened his laptop to look at the purchase report his team had worked on for months. 47 properties, 46 were marked in green. 1 was red. One stubborn, unimportant property was messing up his plan. His assistant Priya got there at exactly 6:15. She knew that on time meant 5 minutes early, and that silence meant he wanted her to talk. She put a thin folder on the glass desk and slid it forward like she was giving something dangerous an offering. "The holdout list, sir. 1 property left on the Southfield corridor. The owner has turned down every offer. The lawyers suggest starting the foreclosure process." Gary didn't look up right away. He closed his laptop first. Then he opened the folder. His eyes scanned the page, address, price, photos, and then stopped. His coffee got cold. 3 miles south of the penthouse, in a house that wasn't perfect, Stacy Moreau was still wearing her work clothes. She hadn't changed when she got home, hadn't eaten. She barely managed to lock the front door before she fell into the kitchen chair and felt the weight of a 14-hour shift press her down. Her feet hurt from the double shift. Her hands, still smelling like cleaning liquid, were on top of an envelope she had been avoiding since Tuesday. It was now Thursday. The envelope won. She opened it. The numbers were the same no matter how many times she checked. They never changed. 43 days. That's how long the county was giving her. 43 days before the house her grandmother had given her, like a blessing, became someone else's problem to tear down and forget. She put the letter down, pressed her hands flat on the table, and took a deep breath. Then, the lights went out. The whole street went dark at once. Stacy sat there for a moment, not moving, almost laughing at the bad timing. Then she stood up, opened the cabinet above the stove without looking, and found it right away, the way you always find something you've grabbed 1,000 times. The old oil lantern was dented and dark at the top from years of use, but it was still half full, as if it had been waiting. She lit a match, and the flame caught. Warm light pushed back the darkness, the same way it always had. the same way it had on one awful night 20 years ago that she still thought about more than she liked to admit. She pulled the lantern close and read the letter one more time, her face calm and her jaw set. Outside, the rain started again. Gary hadn't planned on going himself. That's what he told Priya when she gave him that look she saved for decisions she didn't agree with but wouldn't say anything about. Site visits were for his project managers. Intimidation was for his lawyers. Gary Chen sent people to do things. He didn't go himself. He hadn't made 47 purchases by making things personal. But here he was, standing on a cracked sidewalk in the rain at 7 p.m., hands in his coat pockets, looking at the smallest, most unimportant piece of property on the entire Southfield corridor. The house was exactly as the photos showed. Worn siding, a messy front yard, and a porch that leaned to one side. His team had said it should be torn down. Easy, clean. All it needed was a signature to become the green space his architects wanted between the towers and the street. He should have felt nothing. Then he saw the lantern. It was in the kitchen window, sending its small, warm circle of light out into the dark, the same light that had no reason to be there, except in a memory he had spent 2 decades trying to forget. His chest felt tight, but he told himself it was nothing, an old lamp, a coincidence. The city was full of old lamps. He walked toward the porch anyway, one step at a time. His shoes were soaked before he reached the steps. He grabbed the porch railing to steady himself, and his fingers started to trace the wood without him even thinking about it. They found the carving right away. 4 words in uneven letters, carved deep by a desperate boy who had nothing to offer except a promise he didn't know how to keep. I will come back. Gary Chen, who hadn't cried in 11 years, who stayed calm through bankruptcies, court cases, and the death of his last foster kid, fell to his knees on that rotting porch in his expensive suit and cried like the 8-year-old boy he had never let himself be. He stayed there for a long time. The rain didn't care about his suit, and the porch didn't care about his success. And for the first time in years, Gary didn't care about either of those things. He just stayed there in the rain, one hand on those 4 words, while something that had been hidden for 11 years came apart quietly. Then he stood up, wiped his face, and knocked on the door. The door opened a crack. One brown, tired eye looked at him. Stacy looked at him, and her instinct told her the stranger wasn't bringing good news. "Whatever you're selling," Stacy said, "I'm not interested." "I'm not..." His voice broke. He covered his mouth, took a breath, and said, "I'm not selling anything." She looked at him like he was strange, the expensive coat, the ruined shoes, and the face of a man who had been crying. Her hand tightened on the door. "Then what do you want?" Gary's eyes went past her to the kitchen table, to the lantern burning low and gold the same way it had on the worst and best night of his childhood. "You kept the lantern," he whispered. The words didn't make sense to her. She could tell they weren't for her, not exactly. They were for something from the past, something he was seeing that she couldn't. "Who are you?" she asked. Gary looked at her then, really looked at her braids, the way she held herself, steady, calm, ready to protect what was hers. He didn't remember her face. He had been 8 years old, cold and barely awake, but he remembered that posture. He had been safe with her for one night and had spent 20 years trying to find his way back. "My name is Gary," he said. "Gary Chen." He paused. "I'm the boy from the rain." Stacy kept the chain on for 3 more seconds. Then her hand dropped from the door. She made coffee. Gary sat at the kitchen table in his soaked coat. She hadn't asked him to take it off. He watched her move around the small kitchen with the quiet skill of someone who had learned to live in small spaces. The lantern sat between them. Neither of them said how weird it was that they were here, like this, 20 years later. But the warmth was coming back, slowly, carefully, the way it always does to people who have learned to not trust it too quickly. He told her parts of his story, not everything, but enough. The foster homes, the years he learned to turn hunger into determination and shame into ambition. How he had carved those words into her railing with a nail he found in the mud because he was 8 years old and that was the only thing he had to offer. How he had kept the promise by becoming someone who could never be turned away again. Stacy listened without interrupting. She had always known how to make a person feel like they mattered. She almost smiled. For a moment, the foreclosure notice on the counter was just a piece of paper. Then, she saw something out of her corner of eye. She put down her mug, stood up, walked to the counter, and picked up the foreclosure notice. She looked at the logo, she looked at the car outside, and she looked back at the logo again. The silence that followed was full of something hard to describe that was already causing pain. "Chen Development Group," Stacy said quietly. "That's your company." Gary stood up. "Stacy, you're the one taking my home." She didn't raise her voice. She looked at him across the kitchen, across the coffee, the lantern, and the 20 years, and what was in her eyes was worse than anger. It was hurt. Gary made 17 phone calls before sunrise. He sat in his car outside her house. She had asked him to leave, and he worked his phone to stop a problem he had created. He called legal, operations, and his site manager Marcus, who answered on the fourth ring. Gary explained, and Marcus was silent. Then, Marcus told him that the demolition order for the Southfield corridor had been approved and signed by people at 5 p.m., that the crew was planned for 7 a.m., standard procedure. Everything was legal and actually what Gary had told them to do months ago. He was at the site by 6:45. The crew was already there, 3 vehicles, a crew of 8, and a bulldozer. The foreman, Dex, climbed down from the cab with a clipboard. Dex had been told that lawyers had been called and that this morning the crew legally wasn't supposed to stop what they were doing. Gary walked in front of the bulldozer anyway. He didn't loosen his tie, he didn't take off his coat. He walked to the middle of the road, turned to face the machine, and stood there. A rich man in a ruined suit, alone on a street, his arms out to his sides like he was ready for what was coming. Dex looked at him. The crew stared. Nobody moved. He hadn't noticed the news van until the camera was already on him. Someone had called, a neighbor, a crew member, and realized that a rich man stopping his own project on a street was not normal. The reporter was young, talking fast with a microphone. Gary didn't move. He told the camera the truth, that this house was owned by a woman who once saved his life when saving him cost her everything, and that no project was worth more than that. Stacy appeared at the front door at 7:13 in her work clothes from the night before. She saw the bulldozer and the man she had told to leave standing between her and it like he had been there for years. She didn't shout. She stood there, her hand on the porch railing, and watched him hold the line. 6 months is enough time to fix a neighborhood. It's not quite enough time to fix a person, but Gary learned it's enough to start. The building that happened wasn't what he planned. It was quieter and more careful. The architects he brought in knew places that felt like they belonged rather than were put there. 40 units were in a circle around a spot at the center of the street, the way planets went around light. The point at the center was a front porch. Gary had paid the mortgage the morning after the bulldozers left. He had done it quietly, through lawyers, because he didn't want credit. It was overdue, and the interest wasn't something he could pay. The board had argued, but Gary had read it once, folded it, and put it in a drawer he was not to open again. Then he had gone further, and the Lantern Foundation started with shelter. Stacy sat on the board. It was raining the evening Gary came back to the porch for the last time that year. Not the hard rain of 20 years ago. This was softer, the kind that asks little from you. He found Stacy already there, the old lantern lit on the railing. He sat down next to her, their hands connected, the way people reach for something each has had for a long time. Below the railing, the new neighborhood was warm, safe for people. The rain fell on the porch that nobody could demolish. Neither of them spoke for a long time because there was nothing left to say, because it had fought dark. If this story inspires you, share with someone.